would like to introduce to all of us Melokuhle as a statistical organization, and Melokuhle is standing in front of us here. As a statistical agency, we had to take into account the use of statistics in naming Melo. Melokuhle is the most popular name, female baby, that was coming out of our 2021. So here is Melo in front of us.
Greetings, Statistician-General of South Africa.
Melo, please have manners. Kindly greet everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Melo, please load the Census 2022 presentation. If we go to the next slide, Melo, we are saying that in 1996 we used pen and paper. 2001 we used pen and paper and went straight into scanning technology. So was 2011, my apologies. In 2022 we had three modes: face-to-face, telephonic and web-assisted, and all of these were digital applications. Now, having spoken about the next slide, we want to talk about the population of South Africa. We know now how much was done in terms of the counting, in terms of the people that we have missed, that we could not find even when we arrived at their households. Now, Melo, can you tell us what the total population of South Africa is as of the 2nd of February 2022?
No, I cannot. I am not the Statistician General. Only the Statistician General can release the numbers.
I'm sorry, Melo. I actually forgot that you are just standing next to the Statistician General. The population of South Africa as of the 2nd of February 2022 was 62.027 million. And of course, we can show how our population grew over time. We can say that in 1996, there were 40.6 million, and we grew by 10.4% into 2001, where we were sitting at 44.8 million. In 2001 to 2011, we grew by 15.5% straight into 51.8 million. And the increase between 2011 and 2022, the increase was 19.8%, which represented 10.3 million persons, and it took us to 62.027 million. Let us look at the provinces. KwaZulu-Natal, as of 1996, was the most populous province. It was followed by Gauteng. 2001, KwaZulu-Natal stayed. In 2011, it was overtaken by Gauteng. As we can see that Gauteng went all the way to 2022, sitting at 15.1 million, followed by KwaZulu-Natal at 12.4 million. But of interest is the Western Cape, which was number 5 in 1996. 2001, the same. It came after KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, and Limpopo. In 2011, it overtook Limpopo. And of course, now it has overtaken the Eastern Cape. It's sitting at 7.4 million, followed by the Eastern Cape, sitting at 7.2 million. Limpopo, 6.4 million. Mpumalanga, 5.1 million. The Northwest, 3.8 million. 3 million goes to the Free State. And the Northern Cape, as usual, it has the largest land mass. It's sitting at 1.4 million. Let us look at black Africans. They are sitting at 50.5 million. That is, they account for 81.4% of the population. Colored population group, 5.1 million, accounting for 8.1%. And indeed, let us look at the white population group, 4.5 million, accounting for 7.3%, and the Indian Asians, 1.7 million, accounting for 2.7%, and other, those who didn't specify, at 200,000. But of interest is the white population group. When we look at 2011, they were sitting at 9%. They have now declined to 7.3%. The next slide gives us age cohorts. Children 0 to 14 years sitting at 16.4 million, accounting for 26.4%. Young people 15 to 34 years accounting for 21.6 million, sitting at 34.8%. Adults 35 to 59 years accounting for 8 million, sitting at 29%. The elderly, the 60 years plus, sitting at 6.1 million, accounting for 9.8%. Melo, we want to talk about how many official languages that you speak.
As a recent immigrant to South Africa, I only speak English. I am hopeful one day I will speak all 12 official South African languages.
I want us to look at the map first. When we look at the map, we might think that Afrikaans is the most spoken language because we see the color for Afrikaans in the Northern Cape and the Western Cape. But we know that the Northern Cape is sparsely populated. It doesn't have much people. So now we want to start with the most spoken language. That is isiZulu, 24.4%. And we can see it's predominantly in KwaZulu-Natal, a bit in Mpumalanga, and of course some parts of the Free State. We can see it, we can look at the blue color. isiXhosa, largely in the Eastern Cape, a bit in KwaZulu-Natal, a bit in the Northern Cape. Followed by Afrikaans, sitting at 10.6%, as we can see, the Northern Cape and the Western Cape. Let us look at Sepedi, mainly in Limpopo, sitting at 10%. Let us look at English, sitting at 8.7%. And of course, let us look at Setswana, mainly in the Northwest, sitting at 8.3%. Sesotho, mainly in the Free State, 7.8%. Xitsonga, mainly in Limpopo, 4.7%. Siswati, 2.8%, mainly in Mpumalanga. Chivenda, sitting at 2.5%, mainly in Limpopo. Isindebele, 1.7%, mainly in Mpumalanga. The sign language is 0.02%, and other, we can see 2.1%. These are those that speak other languages other than the main languages we speak in South Africa. In the next slide, we are saying that Gauteng received a net amount of 400,000 between 2011 and 2022. And we can see it was followed by the Western Cape, followed by Mpumalanga, followed by the Northern Cape. The other provinces in the form of the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and Limpopo had a positive net, a negative net migration. It means that they actually over time are showing reversals. Their population is growing, but in terms of the movements, they are showing that they haven't gained as much as we can see in Gauteng. Now, we want to see largely in the two provinces where people are moving to. Next slide, Melo. We can see that in Gauteng, the population growth is driven by people who come from outside South Africa. Actually, about 50% of people who come from outside South Africa choose Gauteng as their destination. Let us go into the next slide. Let us look at the top 5 sending countries. And we can say that they were the same between the two periods as in 2011 and 2022. Whereas in 2011, those who came from Zimbabwe were sitting at 38.1% and now sitting at 45.5%. And of course, coming from Mozambique, 22%, 2011, now sitting at 18.7%. And Lesotho, 9.1%, in 2011, sitting at 10.2%. Malawi, 4.9%, 2011, and indeed 8.9% now. And the United Kingdom was sitting at 4.1% in 2011, now sitting at 2.8%. Let us look at education in the next slide, Melo. We are saying, when we look at 0 to 4, we are saying that 6 out of 10 children aged 0 to 4 years had access to some form of early childhood development program. The gray color on the left says that nothing, they don't have any opportunity. But from the green colors all the way, it's either at a crèche, a preschool, a daycare center, sitting with a gogo, or a day mother, or a gogo, or a home, or a community playground. We are saying that 6 out of 10, about 60%. But the challenges were more in the Northern Cape and the Northwest, where we can see that those who had no opportunity for early childhood development are sitting at more than 50%, right at the bottom. Let us look further in terms of education in the next slide. We are saying that the percentage of persons aged 20 years and older who completed a secondary education more than doubled from 16.3% in 1996 to 37.6% in 2022. Let us look at the bar, on the second bar from the right-hand side. We can see that it's shooting up. And it's largely, when we look at the others, no schooling, it's declining. Completed primary schooling, it's declining. Some secondary declining. So it means we are seeing more people who have completed secondary school in the form of grade 12. And again, they are moving to post-school. And as they move on the extreme right, we can see that post-school has moved from 7.1% in 1996 to 12.2% in 2022. Let us look in 1996, we had 9.1 million households in South Africa. 2001, we were sitting at 11.2 million, having increased by 23.7%. 2011, we went up to 14.4 million, having increased by 28.9%. And indeed, 2022, we have gone to 17.8 million, having grown by 23.4%. And we can see that from 1996, we have doubled in the number of households that we have in South Africa. When we bring these numbers, we bring them without taste buds. Our job is to bring numbers. I can see some nodding in the room, and I can see this nodding doesn't work with statisticians. We only bring the numbers because we bring both the good and the bad news. The statistics about the good, the ugly, and the bad, and we tell all of them. Now, let us look at service delivery in the next slide. In the form of access to electricity for lighting in South Africa, not lightning, lighting. And here, Mr. President, Minister, and members of the public, I don't want us to be caught up into the disruptions of load shedding. It's what members of the public have told us about the main source of energy for lighting. Whether it's there or it's disrupted or not, this is what they told us. So let us look at 1996. It was just some pockets that were yellow in the Western Cape. There's a place called Mkanyakude in KwaZulu-Natal. When you are at night, there's this tree that actually glows amber or yellow from far. So Mkanyakude was only in the Western Cape. In 2001, the Western Cape was universal. And in 2011, we could see the whole country was making it. As of 2022, almost the whole country is sitting between 80 and 100%. And indeed, only one municipality, eMadlangeni, fell below 80%. So, Mr. President, it's not my space to say it, but if we could solve the load shedding challenge, the people are already ready to switch on their lights at any given moment because the infrastructure is there. Melo, will you please take us to the next slide because the program director here wants me to conclude. This slide, which says Ndihela Kwala, and members of the media, you have to hear this story. This story that says Ndihela Kwala goes in one of our languages in Xitsonga. When I was growing up in the village as a little boy, we could read and write. Our mothers could not read and write. Our fathers were migrant workers in urban centers all over the country. So we had to be the scribes of our mothers when the letters came from Johannesburg or anywhere else. Our mothers and fathers had to find a standard way of concluding a letter they could not end a letter with, "I love you, my husband," because those words, as their children, we were not supposed to hear them. If we heard them, according to village legend, we were going to go deaf. And we were not supposed to write them down, because if we wrote them down on behalf of our mothers, according to village legend, we were going to get blind. Because there's no way children would hear their mother telling their father, "I love you" or "I miss you." So mothers and fathers had to find a way amongst the Batsonga of ending the letter to say, "Ndihela kwala." Many of us will remember the Bavenda would say, "Ndifelela hanef." The Batswana would say, "Kifetsa hona fa." The Bapedi would say, "Kifetsa hona mo." And of course, the isiXhosa speaking people would say, "Ngiceda khona apha ngomkhulu umbuliso." And the Basotho would say, "Kaditumediso na watsina." And those who speak isiZulu would say that ngiceda khona lapha. But mainly they would not write it that way. They would say, "Amaningyang now." So even myself, "Amaningyang now." But let me mention that never, Mr. President, and never again, President Mandela once said, should we let any section of our society, be it men, women, children, or any other person based on their skin color, be excluded such that they cannot even express themselves on issues that matter the most to them. Matter the most to them, like love, where they can't even say to someone, "I love you" or "I miss you," because they have to express that through a proxy. Because we have numbers that tell a story and we cannot use them sufficiently enough. Let me assure you, Mr. President, Minister, Deputy Ministers, Chair of Councils, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that my next slide is blank. If Melo could take me to the next slide, I would assure that is blank.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king, I think I'm a king,